Hello again, it's Dave Kites from the OTOW Woodshop. This little smart shop tip is about jigs that we have in the shop. Some people are not aware of how many jigs we got, what we got, where they are, and so on. So I was asked to put this together. I'm not going to tell you how to use any of the jigs. I'm just going to tell you what we got and where they are. There are videos for many of them on the website, our website, under education videos, and you should look at those before you try to use the jig. Even if you've been doing woodworking for a while, you haven't been doing it with our jigs. So take a look at those videos and see just how they work before you try to use them. Now, we have a lot of jigs in the shop now. I got 14 or 15 different ones I want to point out to you today. But there's more on the way. I've got some in design and some ideas, and some are even on the wish list, which is way down the road. But there are several that will be showing up in the near future. I'm saying in the next couple, 3 months. That's near future to me for a jig. And then we'll make some videos and things about those when we do put them out. Also, there are a few I'm going to show you that don't have a video. Most of them are very simple, not really warranting a video, but maybe I'll make one anyway because a couple of them might warrant a video and I could just put them all together. But we'll see about that. I'm going to post this list when I get done. It's going to be, for now, I'm just going to put it right on this table saw right here, okay? And so if you're wondering, do we have a jig that might help me with this, you'll be able to just look at this and see. Eventually, we're going to integrate this in the new sign-in desk area that we're under construction. Well, it's finished design. It's getting ready to be built. A whole new sign-in area with the papers rearranged and different notebooks, and you'll see it when it gets here. But we'll incorporate this in there when that comes. Meantime, I'll just put it here. Endless number of jigs available. You can buy good ones, you can buy junk. It's the same old story with everything that's out there. The jigs that we have in the shop are not anything too fancy, but most of them are in very good condition and work quite well. And they're a big help. So doing things the old-fashioned way is sometimes satisfying and sometimes fun, and sometimes you think it's easy because you know how to do it, but it doesn't really make it maybe the easiest way to do it. There might be a jig that could help you a lot. So let's start talking about what we do have in the shop. For the table saw, there are quite a few jigs. So this 3030 sled here is for the table saw. It is a medium-sized sled for cutting precise and repetitive cuts, 90-degree cuts or angled cuts, because with this one you can clamp your piece at an angle and run it past the blade. It's quite flexible. There is a comprehensive video on the website for it. So it is stored here, and the accessories for it are over here. This is the hold down. This is a fence, a blade guard if you want to use it. They're over here for this 3030 jig, which gets a lot of use. It's turned out to be probably one of the most used and popular jigs we have in the shop. Under here, we have this long Fa sled, I call it, and its companion sled, the A sled. These are used for narrow strip ripping, which is briefly covered here on this little two-sided handout. When you cut narrow strips on the table saw, this will help you a great deal to avoid kickback, broken strips, near misses, sawing up the push blocks, or not the push blocks, but sawing up the push sticks, and so on. So again, the Fa fence and its accompanying sled A are right down here. The push blocks and other things you need to make them work are in the drawer right here. And there's a video, a good long video, and there's even a refresher video on that one on there, which is I think something like 10 or 11 minutes long. So if you haven't used it for a while and you just want to brush up, you can look at the little video. But that is their thin strip cutting jigs. There's another jig down here, which is another sled, which we call Sled W, and it has these accessory pieces with it, which are all still labeled W also. And what it basically is you have an irregular shaped piece and you want to cut a straight edge on it, a straight line on it. If you want to cut it, you got a circle and you want to cut a segment off of the circle. This will let you clamp your piece to this sled, hangs over here, the blade comes down here. These are the clamp arrangements. So you just clamp it to that, and when you run it through, of course, the saw blade goes straight down the line that you lined up with the cut line. So that jig W is down there for cutting odd shapes. It's called jig W because it's for weird shapes. W, weird, okay? We also have, for the table saw, a big sled. This will hold a 48-inch piece of plywood, as you see here. It only comes to there. This sled has some limitations to it, and it's getting old. So I'm working on a replacement for it, which is over there, which overcomes all of the shortcomings of this sled and will handle, actually it'll handle 49 inches because sometimes you buy MDF board and that still comes 49 inches wide instead of 48. So anyway, that sled will replace this one sometime soon. In addition over here, this is an in-feed table for this saw. That in-feed table clamps to this fence rail, and once you line it up where you want it, it clamps to the fence rail and lines up a piece of angle on that with this, and it makes a big extension here on the input side so you can put your big piece of plywood up on there with one stand on the outboard to hold it up, and you can handle a piece by yourself, pretty much. So that's what that is. There is no video for that guy either, but there might be in the future. All right, over here, leaning on the wall, we have two pieces. We have this straight edge kind of thing. It's not perfectly straight, but it's long. It's 8 feet long. And we have longboard straightening jig J with his accessories in here. This is a long sled that is used to cut a straight edge on one side of a board that you bought that doesn't have any straight edges when you bought it. You know, it got sawed off a log and it's pretty flat on both big sides, but the edges are still bark and all kind of stuff. You can clamp it onto this with these accessories and run it through, and it'll handle a little over 8 feet actually. I think you could easily handle 9 feet long on this, and you get one straight edge. After you get that, you can use it again on the other side, or you can use the FA fence that we talked about earlier. A lot of options. Not telling you how to use them tonight. There is a video for this on our website. We also have over here a tenoning jig. This tenoning jig allows you to cut the square or rectangular tenons on a table leg that sticks up into the frame or whatever, or a chair cross support, whatever. Tenon and mortise and tenon joints. This cuts tenons on a table saw, so you don't have to try to route them or hand cut them. So that's quite a useful thing. Behind here, appropriately hidden away, are a couple of commercial old aluminum taper jigs for the table saw. These are very limited in their capacity, and they're not very precise, and they're kind of awkward to use. So I'm not giving them a very good press, am I? No. But they're back there if you want to cut a taper on a fairly short piece of wood. If you got a long board, remember we talked about jig J here, the long board straightening jig. If you clamp your board on there at an angle, it'll cut a taper, a long taper, 8 or 9 feet long. So it's really helpful. If it'll cut that, it'll certainly cut a 4 foot long or a 3 foot or whatever. So remember that. And then also down here on the very bottom shelf, there's two router circle jigs, which is mounting actually as a board. a piece of wood. You find the router whose bolt circle fits whichever jig, a handheld router, not the router table of course, but a handheld router, and you bolt it on here with the screws that normally hold the bottom plate on, and then you put your pivot point somewhere here. This one's got one pivot point way out here, and then you just run your router around and cut circles, and this one cuts little ones. Okay, so they're down here. Also under there, in the back of it, because it doesn't get much use at all, there is a Dovetail Jig. It's a very good jig. It's a Lee jig. It's quite wide. It's at least 30 inches wide, probably a little wider. And it cuts very good dovetails with a handheld router again. So that's down under there. There is no video for that, or these, or this, or those other little taper jigs down there. Maybe there should be. I'm looking at that. But right now there's no video on how to use them. Okay, I'm hiding behind the drill press. Here we are over in this, almost in the corner, and we have a few more jigs. This is a resawing fence, a kind of a jig, for the big bandsaw, and accompanying a support block for it there. There is a video on that. It's old, but it's still accurate. There's the video on that. Here we have two circle cutting jigs for bandsaws. Both fit only our Grizzly bandsaw, the medium bandsaw that we have. So only bandsaw these will fit in the shop. This is the simple old one. It's just a piece of wood with the cleats on it, so it sits in the miter slot and gets held firmly in place. You have to pick a center, and the blade is in here obviously, so you have to pre-cut your piece to fit, to get started with it, with this jig. With this jig, for which there is a video, you do not have to pre-cut. And that's the advantage of this guy. It takes a little longer to set up, but he does a real good job. All right, over here in the corner, there's one more jig. This is another taper jig for the table saw. It's probably the best one we got in the shop, other than the longboard straightening jig, but this one is much quicker to set up, handles longer wood. Got a all wood construction down at that end, so if you mess up and hit the saw blade, you won't trip it. And this one works pretty well. It's hidden over here in the corner. There's no video for it. Now, that's pretty much the end of what I wanted to show you we have in the shop, but in doing this little video, I got a feeling that maybe I should put together another video, educational one, and cover these minor jigs and just show generally how they're used. Check the list and think about what you're doing, and can maybe a jig make it easier for you. If you're sitting there scratching your head saying, how should I do that? How can I hold it? How can I be sure it doesn't wiggle? How can I be this? You're probably thinking about things that other people have thought about, and they probably have built a jig to overcome those problems. So take a look.